Hello, everyone. This is Drew Hornbein with Better Together, and I want to introduce you to the debut episode of Sara Rosinsky's show about copywriting and taking all of your copywriting questions. So we will introduce Sara, and then it'll come back to me, and we'll introduce the other people. So Sara, why don't you just talk about yourself for a little bit?
Hi, I'm Sara Rosinsky. I am a freelance copywriter. I have been a copywriter for 1,000 years. I was originally a copywriter in an ad agency, and then I went in-house at public supermarkets, and then I went out on my own full-time in 2016, and I love it, and I'd love to tell you all about it. That's my story.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And now let's go around. We'll start with Michelle, then Lorna, and then Jody on the phone. And why don't you just introduce yourself and one sentence of what is your gift, your purpose, the thing that you want to offer people, and then maybe your website or a way to contact you. So Michelle, can you start us off?
Sure. My name is Michelle Nelson. I'm in Oakland, California. I am transitioning from being a salaried person to being a freelancer, and my specialty is production, web and print production, and I am really, really, really good at it. Specifically, I am an InDesign guru. There is nothing about InDesign that I do not know.
Next, Lorna.
My name is Lorna Rasmussen. I live in Costa Rica, but I'm originally from Canada and the United States, all over the place. And I'm both a coach and a writer. My book is the absolute best way for women to make money. And I encourage everyone to get a copy of it. It's that's my offer.
Perfect, thank you. How nice. Jen has just joined. Are you there, Jen?
I'm here. I was just switching to AirPods.
Awesome. So we're just introducing ourselves. And if you can tell us who you are, where you're from, and what your passion, your gift is, and how to get in contact with you.
I am Jen Ewan. I'm the founder of The Pledgettes, which is a community of supportive women making money moves to achieve their financial goals. I am passionate about abolishing the gender wealth gap and making connections to help people achieve their success. I joined today because I'm always inspired and challenged and motivated by whatever Sara has to say. There's so much that I need to learn from her. So happy to be here today. You can get in touch with me by emailing me at jen@thepledgettes.com or find me on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Thank you. Oh, and I'm last. I'm Drew Hornbein. I am the founder of Better Together, and I help teams have shorter, more productive meetings. And you can get a hold of me at dhornbein.com. So let's get into the juicy content of writing rightly. So I have a question. I'm doing these videos, and the videos are a great source of content, and I'm curious about maybe your thoughts on transcription services, and also on what do I do? There's this video content that could be turned into text content. What are your thoughts? Do you have experience with that? Do you have thoughts on that?
Someone recommended 2 transcription services to me this week. I've barely ever used transcription services and usually found them pretty amusing. Be really careful with whatever they give you. Things are usually a little bit off. I don't know, in terms of content, people tell you that video is the best content there is. I think sometimes that's not true. sometimes I feel like a video is a commitment where you can't scan a video the way you can scan some text. Text with some subheads in it. I mean, it depends on what you're trying to say, but video is a commitment, especially if you want to put the sound on. Boy, I better want to hear it. So yeah, I guess it depends on how riveting this conversation ends up being and how informative as to what you can do with it. If there are sound bites or good takeaways. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but not tons of experience with transcription or even video, to be honest.
Okay, yeah, I think that touches into it. And what about maybe a process for taking long form? If I wrote out, you know, if I got the transcription or if I had a long form piece, do you have experience advice on taking a big block of content and breaking out, you know, because like I think there's a pattern of writing a blog post. I know that Lorna is often doing this, is writing a blog post and then turning it into social media posts.
You've actually done a really good job of doing that. You have, right? I have to, those of you who don't know, and many of you do, Drew put together a big conference, and that was amazing. And admittedly, I mean, not single-handedly, whatever, but we spearheaded it. But then he boiled down all of the takeaways of the planning of that conference and transformed that into a very readable article that was also very scannable, digestible. I thought that piece was really good. And then you turned it very successfully into social media posts. Numbered items. I thought it was great. I assume you've been getting really good traction, right?
Maybe.
Have you? I think you're doing a great job.
Yeah, I think so. It has turned there was the conference Instagram, and I started then the Better Together Instagram, and there has been it has generated followers one to the other. So that in that way it has been successful. Yeah, can you speak more? I mean, I love the positive feedback, but I speak more to what makes a piece of writing, a piece of text scannable. Like what are you? I'm curious what qualities the text has.
So I would say, and probably everyone knows this, but you want to pull out the salient, meaning the things that rise to the top. You want to pull out those highlights and turn them into subheads or bullet points or things, little delicious tidbits that your eye can go to easily without having to read all of the embellishments beneath it. You might hear the verb chunk. You're chunking your copy, or you're chunking what you're writing into pieces. I think we all, I mean, if you read a magazine, you can see that, and Michelle knows this, that, you know, that with layout, there are going to be call-outs, there are going to be large bits of type, quotes, things that pull your eye, as opposed to just one flowing piece of unified text, which is hard to swim through. You kind of want to give people things to grab onto. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and I think that I want to dig into this more, because I anticipate that some of our listeners and people watching the video, perhaps like me, like I feel like I do it intuitively, but do you have anything to say about how am I selecting those callouts? How am I is there a standard of like thinking about how to chunk things out?
That's a good question. I'm actually kind of doing that right now as I'm preparing a talk and trying to identify what slides I want to make, and I have a whole bunch of content that you should pardon the expression, vomiting into a document, just all of my ideas, I'm just putting them down. And then they just sort of start to form themselves. You kind of realize, well, all of these things are kind of alike, and all of these things are kind of alike. And the beauty of word processing is that you can move things around, you can color them even. You could say everything that I turn mauve, is about plumbing or whatever the idea is that kind of starts to cohere. Back in the day, you'd have to use index cards, right? And then move them around. And if that works for you, great. But I love, word processing because you can move things around so much. I will say one little thing I do when I am manipulating a large amount of text like that, there will sometimes be ideas that I think there's something here. I'm not sure what I want to do with it. So I always create something at the end of my document that I call purgatory. I just stick those chunks of text down there because I can't stand to delete them yet. So I find that really helpful. And yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. And Lorraine, you raised your hand?
I did. I thought since you didn't see an electronic one, maybe I could get my real one up there. I quite frankly don't think of copywriting as editing, and that's what we've been really talking about, correct? I mean, copywriting to me seems like, and it doesn't matter what the definition is. What's important to me is I need some things that would help me have people open up my social media posts and my emails. I do email marketing and I do social media. Social media is not so much an issue because I use visuals, but it's the email that I really would like people to open, and I don't think they're opening at the rate that I think the content deserves.
One piece of advice that I will give you that you may know, but the most effective change you can make to email copy is to make it about the recipient. Use the word you. Use their first name if you can. I'm always really hesitant to do that because I'm always afraid there's going to be some technical glitch and it's going to say, hello, first name. I'm really scared of that. But if you look at open rates, and that is another beauty of electronics, you can really gauge what makes people open the email. What is it about making friends and influencing people? What is really music to people's ears is their own name. And I'm not trying to criticize. We're all human beings. We all care about ourselves. So there is a really, really, really good copywriter named Laura Belgray. You may want to check her out. She touts herself as being as writing the only newsletter that anyone opens anymore. Her emails are absolutely riveting. I have an absolute crush on this woman. She's just, and when she likes something that I do, I just about fall over. But anyway, she employs a very casual tone. It's unique to her. Not everyone could do it. But I think the key is humanity. Like, sound like a human being, acknowledge the human being that you're talking to. I hope this is helping you. Be very empathetic in your tone. Remember that you're talking, even though you know you're talking to 500 people or 2,000, you're really talking to one person. Always think of it as one person. And what would she, might be a he, but what would that person respond to? Short headlines or subject lines are good. cheesy language, if you can, like free, low, you know, anything that sounds too promotional is kind of a turnoff. Pay attention to the things that you yourself tend to open. I'm a tough customer. Boy, am I busy. I don't want to open your emails. Like I'm not you personally, but I don't, it takes, and I save Laura Belgray's emails so that I can read them.
How do you spell her name?
How do I what?
How is their name spelled?
Oh, her last name is Belgray. She made $1 million as a copywriter last year.
Whoa.
Yeah, she's doing it right. Oh, I should say over $1 million. I'm sure she didn't cap out at that on the dot. But so yeah, what else about emails? You know, pay attention to the ones that you do send out and what does generate interest, and you know that is nifty. I also, you know, so one thing I will say with emails is, even though they are kind of, they can feel irritating and stuff, it is a good way to keep a relationship even if people aren't opening them. But do titrate between an annoying quantity and a high touch. You know what I mean? Like, no one wants to get, I don't think, one a day, you know? So if, that's something to contemplate.
Can you define titrate?
Oh, titrate is back in your chemistry days when you would try to modulate the amount of acidity and base in a substance. So it's just about levels, you know, getting them to the perfect level. I can't even remember how I just used it, but that's what titrating is. So.
Titrating between sending too many.
Yeah.
Keeping yourself top of mind.
Try to find the sweet spot, I guess. So, and social media too. I mean, I guess you know this. It's just a relationship. You're just staying. You know, you're staying a consistent, trustworthy. You know, you're sharing your personality and so on with people. It's not usually such a call to action, but.
I'm curious of how, when I sit down to write, if there's any things that I can do to be like you and have a more personal, conversational. Are there any techniques that you use in generating copy?
And again, I think you do a very, very, very good job. But you might consider reading what you write out loud if it sounds stilted or peculiar, you know, that can be very helpful. Admittedly, I don't do that. I have a pretty clear voice inside my head, but a lot of writers will tell you to read it out loud. I would encourage you not to use, and you don't, Drew, but a lot of writers do, you know, they use words like employ and utilize, and, you know, particularly in the marketing world, they'll try to sound like they have a business school degree. And, you know, I understand if you've paid for one, you want everyone to know it, but we are people, and we, you know, we talk, we don't say utilize. I'm sorry. That is just, I implore, see, I say implore. I beg everyone to ask yourself what your motivation is for using a word like that. You don't need to impress anyone. You want to connect with them. You want to be a human being. I recommend being vulnerable. I would say vulnerability is in. You don't have to seem perfect. You can admit that the reason you haven't gotten around to emailing earlier is that your plumbing went out, or, you know, whatever that vulnerability is. I think an audience appreciates, oh, look, it's a human being addressing me. It's someone with problems. It's someone with challenges. And it's someone who's not afraid to, you know, share that. I think there's a lot of value in that too.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't know how to raise my hand being on the phone.
Okay.
This is Jody, though.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So I use Utilized all the time. And however, my customer base, they're all in like corporate human resources, like training and development type roles. And so those are the people that I'm communicating with. And even when I do talk, I use that word all the time. And so I'm just curious, is it audience and industry? Like, would you say that that might be relevant? Or do you really and truly think that regardless of if you're even having a conversation and that's how the word would come out, it's something that you should probably try and dial back and maybe humanize a bit, as opposed to like the technical terminology?
Okay, so absolutely think of your audience. You should talk to a group of cowboys differently than you talk to a group of strippers or a group of industrial painters or whatever. They each have their own patois and language. So absolutely, I shouldn't make huge generalizations and say never do anything, but yeah, think of your broader audience for sure, and what will ring true with them. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions about emails or thoughts, your own thoughts?
I love talking about emails. I always procrastinate on writing my monthly emails because I want to make sure that I'm giving value to my attendees. And so I probably overthink it often, but what are some bits of value that you see are sort of the best trends in email marketing and email newsletters?
I'm trying to think if it's you, Drew, who's been providing a Spotify list lately. Is that you or someone else? I've noticed that lately.
Lindsay Anderson with
she might have done it, and then I think Rebecca might have done it. I don't know. I think that's such a cool idea, and I would say it's a trend because I've seen that happen a few times. Oh, I guess it's my friend Jonathan Hans. It's thoughtful. It's unique. It's if they listen to it and if it's got your name on it, heck, they're going to remember. It's like a cassette tape from back in the day. So that's a cool trend. Trying to think, Rebecca really did just do a great email. I mean, I suppose, Jen, you could ask your audience, like, what do you find valuable in here? You can look at, what they're clicking on too. I'm always fascinated to see what people click on. Did I answer your question? You were wondering like what's valuable in emails?
Yeah, like what are the trends that are making email marketing engaging? And I think the Spotify playlist is a great idea of like something unique that they can leverage beyond the email. And engage with later.
Yeah, I haven't really ever brainstormed it in a kind of blue sky way. I mean, you could, there's, I'm thinking about you and the Pledgettes, you could have success stories. You could have little tidbits from various, your connections about the first time a woman, realized that she could ask for more money. That's an engaging story, like that moment when you say, this, I will only do this job for this much money or whatever it is, you don't forget it. So I think that would be a pretty cool, and then, if I keep brainstorming for you, like you could name that could be like the Pledgettes moment, or, the moment, I don't know. I'm scared of financial matters, so I'm not as plugged into what you do. But it is so rife with emotion, right?
Yeah.
There is probably nothing more emotional than money. Right? I mean, I hate to say that, but it's empowering. It's terrifying. It dredges up memories. So anyway, you have a lot of fodder there. those are really interesting stories that you could share and you could brand.
And Sarah, because you're not fully engaged in finances and there is so much money or emotion around it, like you're our perfect target for who we want to be talking to.
Yeah, I will. You'll get me. I have some hang-ups. But anyway.
We're here whenever you're ready. You just take your time.
Thank you. You're doing good work. So for those of you who don't know, Michelle, you might not know what Jen does, but her group is really nifty, and you can talk about it, or you two can talk later. But she helps pathetic people like me become better capable to manage and grow their money. So
that sounds like, yeah, I'm clueless. I mean, I'm cheap and I save every penny that I can get my grubby little hands on, but what to do with it is another matter.
Talk to Jen. You two need to, for sure. But anyway, so your emails, I think you could have a lot of fun with it. And yeah, I do recommend actually everybody ask around, what do you like? What do you find helpful? That's kind of what I'm doing here, frankly. I'm trying to get some feedback from people about what they would like to learn about. So it's a great opportunity. So
yeah, something I've noticed, or at least in like as I'm getting into the social media with Better Together, there's a lot of content that just like the people around me make, and that does two things. Like it elevates somebody and it provides value. So I would suggest looking to the community and seeing what they're doing, and if you can, lift someone else up and promote them. It's free. It's like free content, and you're helping someone. It's just such a beautiful little thing.
Sarah,
Jen?
how do you balance like what tone to take when? Because one thing that I am working on with the Pledgettes, like it was started because I was mad as hell about the gender wealth gap, and that male version of you will have 3 times as much wealth at retirement age. But I also want to make it inviting, so people like you, it's like, just come have a conversation about money. Let's just talk about money. So like, how do you balance the messaging, especially in something like a newsletter where you do kind of have a diverse group of like being mad as hell, but being like, just come talk to me.
Yeah. I will say you're doing a great job. Nothing you've ever sent or put out or spoken about, you've never scared me. A lot of financial services folks do scare me. Like, I'm sorry, but if you work for Merrill Lynch and you're having a free luncheon or whatever it is, I just, I run.
Not going.
You have a very inviting tone. I don't think you're doing anything wrong. I mean, you've done everything you need to do to get me, and it's just me procrastinating.
No. This isn't a session about you, Sarah.
No, but I am kind of your target. I would be, anyhow. But yeah, so in terms of tone, just trying to both, you have that fiery passion, and you also want to not be scary, right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
I think you're doing a good job.
Times where I should be more fiery and really like let the passion out, or yeah.
Well, so here's the thing. This sounds so trite or whatever, but there's a positive and a negative to every idea, right? So you can rail about the inequity, or you can talk about the potential. And I think you're doing a very good job of doing the latter. And that's really, as soon as you talk about gender discrepancy, I hear your anger. It's there. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like you've said it, that's not something that should make anyone happy. So I think you're doing a very good job. And I would encourage people to accentuate the positive. I think I wrote a blog about that. There's a song about accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative. And it's kind of the way I live my life, and it's also the way I try to write. Negativity, if you've ever gotten emails from political causes, if you tell me how there's only one white tiger left, I just want to cry and get under my bed. If you tell me that there are now twice as many white tigers as there were, even if it's only from 1 to 2, or what, you know what I mean? It gives me a glimmer of hope, and I'm much more likely to come out from under the bed and read it. So yeah, I would encourage positivity when possible. There are exceptions to that. I think there can be really good advertising that takes a different approach, but I would use it with caution and try to be positive.
Will you sing the song one more time?
You got to accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative. Anyway, if you find my blog, I have the YouTube video.
Awesome.
Can I just say something that I struggle with the same thing, because when you're raising an issue with people who may or may not be as far along in thinking about an issue, then to me, one of the most important things you can bring to the table are examples of other people. So people know, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who thought that way, or I'm not the only one who's been concerned about that. And so one of the things that is a challenge, I'm just read my latest email just to see what it was like in comparison to what you're doing. And it raised an issue. I have a she's 19 now, I think, 19-year-old helping me write my social media. And what she does, I do the video and then she writes it from there. But she's actually pulling stuff out. And sometimes I've gone in, I've changed the title, and then she comes back and she says, well, that's a better title, but it's not good for SEO.
Oh.
So there seems to be so I think what she was doing was putting words in that helped if people were searching for those words. And obviously we want people to read our stuff, so SEO is important. I don't understand it at all, but it is it is important. And I don't know if in copywriting you've dealt with that at all.
I have a very ambivalent relationship with search engine optimization, which is what that stands for. My approach, like it or not, is I write authentically. I do not concern myself with SEO. I really don't. I will fill in the little descriptors accurately, but I'm going to say this as efficiently as possible. If you are a plumber in Lewistown, North Dakota, I'm making that up, and you want people who have clogged toilets to contact you first, you really need to worry about SEO. Like you need it so that when people in that zip code put in plumber, you come up. I would recommend that you hire an SEO expert and go to town with it. For someone like me, I don't want someone doing a broad search for copywriter and then finding me. That's not my client. I don't want someone that's how they find a copywriter. So, and I don't know your exact situation and your exact customer base and how many, you know, regular followers you have. I mean, there are all these different things. And so I guess, again, it's with the titration. Are you trying to spend your energy in getting the most search results? Is that your priority? In which case, great. If it's making you sound weird from a tone and copy point of view, you might want to rethink it. But another thing to say about search engine optimization, I don't know much about it, but I know it changes all the time. So you can bend over backwards to trick the Google robots, the overlords. But you know what they really want? They really want it to work authentically. They really want someone who's actually an expert in what you do. And if you're really an expert in what you do, you're going to put that stuff, those terms in your copy anyway. So I kind of appreciate Google for doing that, so I don't know if that helps you. It helped me
think about it. And an argument with the 19-year-old.
Yeah, I want to echo what Sara said. So my background is in technology and often adjacent to SEO, and the engineers at Google and all the search engines and Facebook, they are engineering their search engines to deliver the authentic content. So they're trying to align when someone searches for something to the authentic content, and actually trying to dissuade people from gaming the system.
Right.
So it's and I'm sure there's SEO experts out there that are like banging their chests right now. It's like, Sara, I think you really nailed it there.
Is Grammarly ever wrong?
Yes.
I think so. I argue with them all the time.
Yeah.
I guess it's more like poor grammar is more accepted over time, and then words like impactful get added to the dictionary, and bad grammar sounds human when good grammar doesn't. And like, when do you just say like, yeah, Grammarly, I'm just gonna have bad grammar today?
I do it. If you've seen my homepage on my website, I certainly do it. Have you seen my homepage? For those of you who haven't, the headline, or early in the copy, it says, "It's me, Sara." Well, that is grammatically an incorrect sentence. But if I said, "It is I, Sara," I would immediately alienate everyone. So I don't even know what Grammarly would say about "it's me." So here's what I can briefly tell you about the English language. It changes all the time, and things that are scandalously wrong at one point become, like you're saying, get used so much that you sound peculiar if you don't just. So the best thing you can do is be super aware of those things and make your choices. I have a book over here that there's this expression that I just learned that's called skunked, like the skunk, like a black and white animal, skunked with an ED terms. Those are words that have like evolved so that there's kind of a group that still maintains the old way, and there's so much use over here. The reality, I can throw out several, when you talk about your forte, my forte is such and such, that really was supposed to be your fort. But because there's a musical term, forte, totally different. But again, if I said that my fort is copywriting, 99.9% of people would go, she doesn't know. So anyway, so use Grammarly. Grammarly is quite good. And just, I am putting together a great list of resources that I will share. Hold on. This book, can you see it? It's kind of reflecting.
It's upside down.
I'm so sorry. This book is amazing. It explains everything. So I highly recommend it, but there are others. But that one, he's just so good. He has a whole section about skunked terms. So anyway.
Well, thank you, because whenever I ignore Grammarly, I'm like, what's Sarah going to think if she sees this?
You can ask me, really.
I will do that.
Yeah. And this is another place too where your audience kind of matters. If you're tweeting, it's, you know, maybe one thing, and if you're writing to shareholders, it might be another thing. So I'm all about the incomplete sentence. Oh yeah, I'll use that. You know, I'll do things to be conversational, and yeah, as long as you do things consciously.
May I raise my hand?
Please.
Sorry, this is Jody again. So do you have any advice on like how to not be repetitive with things? So for instance, you know, I have, you know, when I'm promoting like a product, like a personality assessment, you know, we only have 14 different assessments. And after, you know, so long, it's like you don't want to push people away from, you know, the bottom line, which is promoting your product. But when you have limited products that everybody knows about, you know, I mean, how can you, you know,
mix it up?
Like, yeah, I mean, like, how can you, I guess, bring in, like, deviate without deviating, I guess, you know what I mean? Keep it relevant while also not being repetitive.
So let me make sure I understand your challenge. You have an inventory of 14, we'll call them products. And are you emailing about them, or advertising, or?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So, you know, I'm trying to stay relevant on LinkedIn and you know, Facebook in terms of, you know, when I'll make like maybe a weekly social media post, and that's not super difficult. But when it comes to, you know, like a newsletter to, you know, stay in touch with our customers and, you know, or to reach back out to past customers, you know, it's like once you get through, you know, 14 assessments, then what do? You know, come back around to the first one. You know what I mean? In terms of kind of promoting the product and doing, you know, newsletters about just, yeah, I feel like I have limited resources that I can talk about that will keep the content relevant to me without pushing people to other, you know, websites. Like I read something about how whenever you blog or whenever you send newsletters, like you want to make sure that the topic is focused on you and what your goal is, as opposed to, you know, including links that might push people into a different direction, or, you know, including articles that like go to a different writer, like things like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Without totally understanding, you know, your challenges and in the landscape and everything. Again, I think what would be really interesting is to hear different stories about people who have used these courses, or, you know, or assessments, and what it has gotten them. And stop me if I'm totally misunderstanding something, but I think it would be really interesting to interview someone who used one and talk about what they discovered, what it gained them, what surprised them about it. You just might find some very interesting anecdote about how I'd been in the wrong job my entire life and I didn't understand why, or, you know, whatever the, you know, why I changed from being a hairdresser to a brain surgeon, you know, whatever the transformation is, those would all be different, you know.
More along the lines of testimonials as opposed to like product highlights. Yeah,
I think that's more interesting. I mean,
okay.
That would pull me in, and they'd always be different. You know, maybe another angle is something like, you know, why June 1st is a better time to make resolutions than January. You know, why? Yeah, I wouldn't lead with the product, because my guess is not everyone realizes that they need that product, and you need to focus on the need, right?
I think there's also focusing on the impact. So you were kind of speaking to this, Sarah, of you know, there's 14 products or steps, and what, like, there's infinite stories, but there's infinite stories of what those impacts have been. And one way of right, you know, bringing forth an impact is a testimonial, someone saying the impact it had on them, but also like stories about what the impact is or what the impact could be. Yeah, that's what's coming to my mind is impact.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
So that's it. Thank you all for coming. And Sarah, will you share a fun word with us? Putting you on the spot here, share a fun word with us as the outro.
Ah, I think I might even have it printed here. One of my favorite words is, if you can see this, sesquipedalian. And I think it says so underneath, but what I love about this is its etymology. You see that word ped, P-E-D, in the middle? That's the same ped that's in pedestrian, the pedals on your bicycle, it's foot. And so this means 1.5 feet long. It's a long word, which I love because sesquipedalian is a long word. And I mean, this is something that you could pretty much never use, but it's, this is just, yeah, I collect these. If anyone ever wants other delicious words, I have a long list. That's one of my faves.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.